Good evening. Good evening. I am Marcus Wallace, your co-host for Economically Empowering Our Communities, and I have with me my other co-host, Mr. Socrates Garrett. And here we bring real conversations, real truth, and trying to create some real impact. Mr. Garrett, how you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well, Marcus. Thank you for asking.
Good.
It's a beautiful day in Mississippi, about 85 degrees out here, and we had so much rain and it was so wet last week. Those of us in the construction business weren't able to do a lot of work, especially if you're doing civil work. And so we do mostly horizontal stuff. We very seldom come up out of the ground, but when it's wet, we can't do a lot of work. But other than that, it's been good.
That's right. Yeah, hopefully the weather is going to work with us over the next week or two, and hopefully we can get some things done. We had a very interesting show last week, a very impactful show last week. We hope that the listening audience really took notes and took down some real good numbers that we got and statistics to kind of show what we're really dealing with here in the city of Jackson. And we want to also thank our guest, Representative Robert Johnson III, who came and brought some real facts and real truth to the show.
Well, he was a great guest for us, Marcus. He understood the plight of the businessman. And I recall one of his remarks when he said that, the police department doesn't buy a car. It buys a fleet of cars. He said that if you're not doing business with the government, then you're never going to be able to become a large business like a PG&A or like Bowen or like some of our local companies that have done extremely well because they contract with the government. So as a legislator, he said it's critically important that Black businesses are able to do business with the government on a large scale.
Right. And, it's bad, it's sad that we have to break this thing down. But if we're going to create real change, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to break these numbers down and really make sure that we educate our people to understand. $5 billion, which is what the state spend, and African Americans are being afforded only $40 million of that. The math ain't mathing.
It's not mathing, and this is a number that every state representative, every legislator needs to have planted on their forehead every day, because economically, we cannot survive off of less than 1% of the opportunities to do work. And we're talking about to do work. We're not talking about handouts. We're talking about the opportunity to get your butt up every morning, go out there and break your back doing hard work to earn and build an economy in the African-American community. Less than 1% of that 5 billion, Marcus, is what African-Americans are afforded.
And, sometimes you have to hold me back a little bit, I guess being the little young Tasmanian devil as to what I would call. But, in my opinion, when you look at the state of Mississippi, the makeup is 38-40% African-American. City of Jackson is 80+%. I'm not sure what the county is, but in my opinion, the makeup of these boards, authorities and commissions, and the business opportunities should equate to those same, at least to those same percentages or more. Wouldn't Would you agree?
I would agree conceptually speaking, but if we could just get some reasonable gains, some reasonable percentage, you say if you got $5 billion you're spending and you're 38-40% of the population, maybe we won't get 38-40% of that number, $2.5 billion, but 40 million out of 5 billion that's going to African American businesses. And when you think about it, Marcus, since you brought this up, white women are getting 181 million because they're classified as minorities. So explain to me and to our viewers, how could that possibly work?
Well, it works when you play the political games. It works when you're trying to basically be greedy and get it all. Because the way I look at these numbers, the Caucasian men, they're getting 95.9%. So in their mind, they're saying we want 100. So we're gonna then create these businesses and put in our wives' names and to try to capture the other 5%. So they instead of 5, they capture the 3%, leaving us with about 1% to deal with, and that's just not right. It's not right.
No,
It's not
nobody
right.
can say that's right. Nobody can say that, if you have a class of people in your community that's economically deprived, don't get opportunities to do less than 1% of what you're spending in a population that makes up 40%. I mean, any right-minded person, any sober-minded person would say that this problem control, it needs to be fixed. We got to create policies and procedures to fix this problem. But yet we get up every day and everybody acts like that this is not happening. And it's been happening for years, Marcus.
And on the other side, I can clearly see, for those of the listening audience that may not know, there's a lot of backbiting that goes on in the African American side of the business community. But I can clearly see why, because we are all fighting for 1% of crumbs. And so we gotta, what it tells me is we gotta hurry up and get these grade cards out as soon as possible.
We're gonna have to do that, but I want to make absolutely certain that our viewers understand that white folk, men and women, get 99% of all of the contracts for goods and services in the state of Mississippi. 99% goes into the white community. Now, I'm not being racist. I'm not here saying that it's racism that's creating this problem. Economic deprivation is serious. When you deny folks the opportunity to feed themselves, then you get high crime, you get poor communities, you get run down streets, you get all of the negative things that people blame Black folks for, and they want them to maintain the same way other cities are maintaining with less than 1% of the economy.
And actually, you're getting all of those things is exactly what we're getting in the city of Jackson right now. Crime,
broken homes,
infestation of potholes, streets needing paving, just all kind of maintenance work. And this is really the reason why we're here.
So, Marcus, how many of our legislators are African American in the state of Mississippi? A great number are. I don't exactly have the exact number, but I know we have a great number of elected officials. I believe that Mississippi has the highest number of Black elected officials of any state in the South. I believe that Mississippi has the highest number of Black elected officials of any state in the South. But that doesn't change these numbers we're talking about. And so when we say that somebody needs to say something, you would have thought that this would have been on the mind of some legislator to the point that he or she could not wait to write an article, to call the newspaper, to come be a guest on this show, to say it out loud that we got a problem. You know, when we talk about teenage pregnancy, the health department director declared a state of emergency. Well, if you get less than 1% of $5 billion, $40 million in a state where you're 40% of the population, that's a state of emergency that needs to be called.
Right. And as you stated a few minutes ago, this is not about racism. We're not here just, hammering on African American, the Black issue. We're just, you can consider your neighborhood statisticians. We have broken these numbers down and on the state level, the city level, county level, these numbers are just not adding up. And it clearly shows why we're in the situation we're in economically in this city and county. And in order for us to make some real change, we got to break it down, just like breaking down a motor. We got to break it down and build it back the way it should be.
And so to your point that, we're talking about the state of Mississippi, but we're challenging African-American men to do something about it, men and women to do something about it. We're not challenging the governor to do something about it because he's taking care of his constituency. His constituency is white. He is taking care of them. They make absolutely certain that white folk chair 99% of all of the departments in the state of Mississippi are chaired by white folk in the state. The governor appoints people that way. So they're taking care of their own. What we're saying is Black folk, Black legislators, take care of your own. We're saying call press conferences, say something. Don't be silent about an issue that is glaring and staring you in the face the way that this $40 million out of $5 billion is crying. It's shameful. So say something, do something, shout it out loud. That's all you can do. Shout it out loud. Say, I don't have control, but I don't like it.
When you to just look at other numbers, let's take the 1% commission. 197 million, from my understanding, that has been put into that pot. $5 million has only been dedicated to the African American sections of the city.
Now that's to the whole city.
Something is wrong with those numbers.
Explain to our viewers out there, Marcus, because they don't know where this commission came from and what it's supposed to do.
The commission came from the state, the governor, and the commission is supposed to be dedicated to helping with the infrastructure of the city of Jackson. And infrastructure meaning your roads, all the things that we deal with, these street lights that are out. And we have that all over the city. The $1 million question I have is that things are only being done out of this 197 million in certain sections of the city that doesn't look like us. I've gotten the question over the last week about 3 or 4 times, why does everything have to be racial? Well, when you look at these type numbers and situations, we have no choice but to keep bringing up the African American issue because it clearly seems as if that's what's going on.
And so, just for further clarification, the citizens of Jackson had to vote to tax themselves a 1% additional sales tax so that we would have the dollars to pave our streets and fix our infrastructure. The citizens of Jackson voted on that taxation. So in Jackson, Mississippi, the sales tax rate is 8%. In other parts of the state of Mississippi, it's 7%. Because Jacksonian says we want to tax ourselves to fix our streets et cetera, et cetera. But then, Marcus, the governor appointed a commission to oversee the 1% sales tax dollars that the citizens of Jackson voted to tax themselves to do, and put a white person in charge of the commission that decides where the money is going to be spent in Jackson. And to your point, 85 and 90% of the money is being spent on the east side of Jackson, and that means 5% or less is being spent on the south side of Jackson. Now, I don't know, Marcus, if this is a fault of the commission, or this is fault of the administration, or the fault of Jacksonians for being so gullible to vote to tax themselves for something that they did not control. Somebody has got to weather the storm. Somebody's got to take the blame. Somebody got to raise their hand and say, it's me. The fault belongs to me. Who do you think that is, Marcus?
I think it's a combination of everybody.
Okay.
I think it's a combination of everybody. I personally don't think that the leadership in this city and county and state, the African American leadership, is raising enough hell. It's like we have a reactive approach instead of a proactive approach. And we got to get on the front line in the beginning. One thing Representative Johnson said at the last show, he said, man, just think about if all 42 of us went in there together and said, we're not voting on one thing until we get some changes around here. But we got to have people brave enough. When you all are voting in these elections, those are some of the criteria that you need to look at. You need to look at the people who aren't scared to get on the front line. An old man told me a long time ago, there are two types of men, one with balls and one with BBs. This show is uncut, right? So balls with BBs. So we got to first decide the men, the leadership that we have, are they going to have BBs or are they going to have balls? And we got to get on the front line and we got to fight for these issues that we're not asking for pie at the sky. All we're saying is just to be fair. Be fair.
Marcus, I don't know whether or not you can acquire BBs or balls, but someone, when we was on the golf course playing, and I would tell them all of the time, I said, you're going to have courage to play me. I said, now, if you don't have no balls, you go down to Walmart and look on aisle number 6. You can buy you something down there and then come back, because it's going to be that kind of encounter with me. And so I get your point, and I get your analysis. African-American men and women must shoulder the responsibility, must carry this weight with them, must carry this cross with them everywhere they go, until they fix the economic disparity in our communities, which creates crime, which creates bad communities, which creates all of the things that's wrong with our city. Then until you fix the economic disparity, you are enabling that condition to exist and to flourish. And they got to wake up every day saying, my charge, the reason I'm here, is to change the economic conditions in our community, economically empowering our communities, Marcus.
Right. And, let me back up. I want to be a little nice, because there are some ladies that are, leaders politically around here. So I will use the word courage for the ladies, because we do have some strong women around here, and I respect a lot of them. But the men, you got to make a difference. Balls or BBs, plain and simple, and my thing, with that, we get up every day and put our pants on just like everybody else. And I don't understand how no one wouldn't have the confidence to stand up for what is right. I mean, like I said, these are not personal jabs or anything, y'all. We're talking about real numbers. We're talking about real numbers, and if you've sat back and broke them down like we have, it clearly shows the problem that's in that's in the state of Mississippi, Hinds County, and Jackson, Mississippi.
And we got a problem.
Serious problem.
We got a problem. Economic disparity is a real problem from the state all the way down. I'll go all the way back to the federal level. And let's understand this, that the federal contracting division mandates that there is a 15% minority participation goal in all federal contracts. All federal contracts require that. The state of Mississippi does not mandate. The city of Jackson does not mandate. Hinds County does not mandate. Jackson Public Schools does not mandate. The airport authority does not mandate. Churches don't mandate. No one, after we leave the federal guidelines, says that this is something that we're going to be intentional about, that we're going to mandate that this happens. So what happens is this, that the federal government mandates that 15% of all contracts go to minorities. So white men created white women as minorities, and they get 4.5% of all of the contracts that come through federal government. Therefore, they get 99% of the $5 billion that we're talking about. But the issue is what is mandated by the city of Jackson, by Hinds County, by Central Mississippi Planning and Development Groups, by the Hinds County Economic Board, by JPS, by the Airport Authority. What is the mandate there when we are the majority and we are in control?
You know, I want to break it down a little more. I'm very observant when it comes to business. And, you know, a lot of people may say, man, those guys, every week, they hitting it hard, and talking about government contracts, construction. But to show you how impactful this is, we're up here fighting every week because we understand and we felt the wrath of how serious this is. But over the last couple of months, I've just sat back and observed a lot of things, because it doesn't really hit home until it starts hitting other businesses. You take funerals, for instance. I've been to a lot of funerals. Matter of fact, I've been to about 135 funerals over the last 3 years. You don't even see as many flower arrangements at funerals. I know a couple of cleaners have closed, and my point I'm trying to make is that it is terrible up top, but you could honestly see it trickling down to the bottom. And when it trickles down to the bottom, we're seeing all these local mom and pop businesses that are closing up. This is serious business, y'all. We gotta do something. We gotta fight for, again, simply what is right and fair.
Marcus, it's a trickle down theory for sure. When we go back and look at the success African Americans were having, quite frankly, under white leadership, when Dale Danks and Kane Ditto were mayor, Black businesses were doing better than they are today. And so we got to ask ourselves, what's going on here? But when you think about it, back in the day, you had Sudden Supply and Sales running janitorial all over the city. Earl Washington with Street Capital Cleaning Chemicals over there was supplying chemicals everywhere. Haywood had an office supply store in this town, was selling off ballpoint pens everywhere. We had your father, Jerry Owens, was supplying food to all of the Head Start agencies in the South. When we look at Cornelius Turner, that built the apartment complex on Forest Avenue and also built a 6-story high-rise building downtown Jackson during that period of time. When we look at all of these individuals and the gains they were making, the strides they were making, back when Ferris Street was flourishing and you could go down to Stevens Kitchen and Stevens Ballroom, and you could go to the Alamo Theater and you could take your family down there and walk and dine. Hotels were down there, African American owned. The Summers Hotel over on Pearl Street with the famous Subway Lounge down at the bottom was featured on CNN. Black folk were rocking and rolling, making progress, and we thought we were getting ahead. But somewhere, somebody said, no more DEI, no more
minority
participation, no more of this. And we started on an economic slide that is continuing today and getting worse, Marcus.
And you know, honestly, to be honest with you, all of those things you just mentioned were things that excited me to come back home after I graduated from college. Had several job offers, Colgate, Lever Brothers, you name it. But I was excited to come back home because whenever I came home to visit, I saw all of these business people and saw how well they were doing. We even had a nightclub where all the professionals went in the evening time to have a drink and they were networking. We don't have those things now. You know, I can guarantee you if we did a Rolodex of the different business careers, you know, most folks can't name anybody. But back then you could name those individuals like Socrates just did. And so those are the times I pray that we get Jackson back to. I really do.
Well, as you said, we kind of different kind of Negro that's rolling now that does not seem to identify with the struggle nor the aspiration. If you don't identify with what it took to get you in those positions that you're holding, and you don't understand what Marcus and I are talking about when you're killing the aspiration, killing the dreams of young African American entrepreneurs by not supporting them in a meaningful way, then you don't get any of this. And so from that standpoint, it doesn't bother you at all. You sleep well and nothing bothers you. But for those of you that understand, Marcus, you got to cross the carrot and you got to deliver your people from this downslide.
And you know, it's a thing of you got to train your mind because I give you a good example. On an average day, I may get one to three calls of people calling, asking me to refer them to somebody about some business or whatever. And then whenever I do the referral, I always tell them at the end, tell them I told you to call, because we need to make sure people understand and know that we are all working together. And that's a way of me attempting to show businesses here in the city that, hey, Marcus Wallace told me to give you a call that said that you know you're the best in the business with this and best that helps a person from a motivation standpoint as well.
Well, yeah, and we got to have you in a position to be able to do that. You have got to have gotten further along with the intelligence or educated person with high aspiration, with high drive, high energy, work all day and all night. You got to get further ahead than you are, Marcus. We have to do better than what we've been able to accomplish. I'll go back to my grandfather. He owned 800 acres of land. I own about 25. You see the discrepancy here? You see the downward spiral that we're having? Am I doing better than my grandfather? It's every generation is supposed to improve over the last generation.
And you know, it's just like sports. You know, even in business, you know, we're you know, we get up every day to continue to be successful because we're trying to get to the Hall of Fame. When we build this African American business museum in the city, I want to one day see my pictures and information in there as well. But you know, as Socrates said, I got a long way to go. You know, I had an awesome run, but you can't get there if you have an awesome run and then you get staggered because folks think you need one contract. You know, and that's something I haven't understood. Folks counting your pocket and thinking you only need 1 or 2 contracts. I get up every day looking for one. I want a project every day if I can get one, because I'm trying to build a legacy, and I'm trying to encourage some other young people that construction is just as good as being in the pros. You don't have to be in the league to be in the league. You can believe that.
Marcus, we're up against a commercial break. So when we come back, we're going to bring these numbers back up on the screen again, and we're going to bring them back again and again and again until somebody out there, black or white, hears our cry. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.DOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at Socrates Garrett ENT.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
And we're back. And we're back again. Thanks for joining us today on Economically Empowering Our Communities. So as Mr. Garrett stated, we're trying to hit home on these numbers and get you all to really understand, because people lie, but numbers don't lie.
They don't lie, and you see on our screen there what the numbers are again. The state of Mississippi spent $5,519,862,146 last year. $5,297,794,939 went to white men. $181,621,192 went to white women. That is 99%. Actually, Marcus, that's 99% of all of the contracts went to white folk in the state of Mississippi. I celebrate with you. Y'all did a wonderful job. Y'all doing exactly what you ought to do to make your community successful, etc. I really think that you're setting an example that Black folk are not following. You're showing how you're supposed to take care. I've gotten a phone call from a Black elected official in the last 2 years about a contract opportunity. Thank you very much for the folk out at the airport that called the other day. And I had a wonderful visit out there. Thank you very much for the city of Vicksburg that called the other day. What a wonderful opportunity out there. Thanks all of the folk in Texas that are calling and saying that we see that you're in our database. Thank you for all that you do. But here in my local community where I pay taxes, in my state, in my city, in my county, I have not gotten a phone call.
And what we're saying is to the leadership, African American leadership, is not to take this personal. All we're basically saying is that we got to do a better job because the numbers are not matching. It's nothing personal. These grade cards that we're talking about, we're not trying to, put anybody on Front Street or anything. We're actually breaking it down to see what do we need to do collectively in order for us to move the needle.
Yeah, and I think that in many ways, some are going to feel that this is a personal attack. And if the shoe fits, then you got to wear it. And so the deal is the numbers don't lie. So what we're going to bring to you on this show, and this is tremendously important, what we're going to bring to you is the numbers that represent every city that's African-American controlled, with a mayor and a majority of the council people. And we're going to bring to you how they're faring in this category. Economic justice, there's nothing more important than that. Martin Luther King said, it does not do a man any good to have the right to go to any restaurant if he can't afford the meal. If he can't afford the hamburger, he has no right. So when you driving by Cha on your way to Crystals, I get it. I get it, because that's what you can afford. That's why they came out with this pick 5 and pick 3, things that you can afford. The reason we are obese and unhealthy is because of economic injustice. And our folk don't seem to connect those dots, Marcus.
Yeah, I got a call today from someone who's been hosting an event here for, oh my God, 20, 30 years. And he said, I was just calling to see if you're going to be a sponsor this year. I'm trying to add my budget up to see if I need to change, venues or whatever. And, like I said, it's trickling down, because those phone calls used to be without hesitation. Call within 5 minutes. Okay, you can put me down, for 1,000 or whatever. I remember back when Mayor Johnson was in office and he wanted to reward the Public Works Department. I want to give them a picnic. It's going to cost about $5,000. We raised money within 30 minutes to make that happen. And that's what I'm saying, you all. This is not about catching and grabbing, going and buying a Cadillac, putting money in your pocket. We're trying to recreate the mold that we once saw help this city grow.
And quit hating on Black people, but white folk with 99%. How can you hate on a group that gets less than 1%?
Right.
What number do you really want them to have?
Exactly.
To my friend Kim Wade over there on WYAB, what is the number that Black folks ought to have? Every time a Black man tries to stand up and create an opportunity in a legitimate business, then we want to talk about him. We want to call him grifters. We want to call them out of their name. We want to call them set-aside Negroes. We want to call them all kinds of foolish things. When you're getting less than 1%. So I have asked my white brothers and sisters over there, what is the number? What is the number that you think that Black folk ought to really have in the great state of Mississippi? Marcus, what do you think?
Well, again, like I said, you have to hold me back a little bit. To set aside Negroes, I don't understand it, because when you look at quote unquote the set aside Negroes resumes look pretty impressive. It looks like work has been done. And like I told you, I got this set aside Negro got smart. I put orange and green loud shirts on the backs of my people. So when you say set aside Negroes, all I have to do is now put that picture up and say, oh, really? It doesn't look like a set aside Negro to me. But yeah, I agree. We got to stop all this hating and again, when you even start thinking about hating, talking negative in the African American community, just look at these numbers. 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't even have any energy or time to talk about nothing in the African American community when we only getting 1%.
Right. Marcus, we're going to go to a little break here, a commercial break. Engineer, I want some numbers to go up on the screen when we come back. So let's take a commercial break.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at Socrates Garrett ENT.
Have you?
And we're back. Welcome back. We wanted to go to a commercial break there for just a second, give the engineer an opportunity to fix some things he was working with. But we're back, and we're talking about economic injustice. Economic injustice. 1% is less than it should be. 1% is a number that represents systematic denial of opportunities, and certainly no dollars invested into the uplifting and the building and the creating of capacity inside of a specific group. Now, we are raising a boatload of hell out here about redistricting now, and we should be. The Voting Rights Act was tremendously important, but sometimes I don't think we understand what the fight was about. It was about economic justice. It wasn't about school integration. That's something that white folk decided it was time for them to do. I was happy with separate but equal. I didn't have any issue with that. But I did have an issue when the commodity truck had to come around with the cheese and the powdered milk, because economically, we didn't have a foothold. We weren't able to grow and to teach our children the businesses, so that generation improved over that generation. Marcus, I know it's going to be hard for you to outshine your daddy, but you're supposed to.
Right. At least I suppose to attempt to do it. And, you're absolutely right. We got to understand the history behind all of this. And once I think we collectively understand the history, we'll understand the power collectively it is in the power of the vote. And that's another thing that I harbor on a lot. I don't think the citizens in this city and county really understand the African-American muscle that we have. But just like any other muscle, you got to exercise it in order for it to build. And once we collectively understand the African-American muscle that we have around here, I think we can make some real change. I think we can make change bigger than other cities and states, to be honest with you, if we recognize it here in Mississippi.
Well, and it's more of us.
Right.
We are the heaviest populated African-American state in the country. It is more Black folk here than any other state. But we're last. And in fact, we're last because the state is last. So it's going to be hell for a young Black person in a poor community where poverty runs rampant, where some parts of the state, 40% of the population is living in poverty. It's going to be hell for you to be an African-American in the poorest city, in the poorest state in the nation, and rise above. So Marcus, your achievements as a businessman have to be celebrated for what you've been able to accomplish. For you to have a $20 million construction contract in the state of Mississippi is unheard of. for you to be able to rise to that position is something that the very few blacks in Minnesota, Alabama, Georgia, or anywhere else can say that they had a $20 million contract to do construction work. So I salute you, young man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, it's hard getting in the room, but I have been blessed to be in some rooms. But the other part of that is when you get in the room, you got to know what to do when you get in there. You can't get in the big room, you know, and not understand what you got to do. And when you do get the opportunities, you got to perform. You got to have your system in place where you can get things completed and done. And we've been blessed to do that. But again, I always brag because I was able to. I saw people such as my father, and I saw you, Mr. Garrett, and one thing I have to brag on you also is the fact that when you have been blessed to be in these rooms, you cracked the door and allowed some of us to get in there, but you made sure we were ready to be in there when you did. And so that's the mold that we got to continue to abide by here in this city, in this county, you understand? And so, you know, just to bounce back on, when I said, if we collectively understand the power and the African-American muscle around here, Otha Kane mentioned his last show of some of the things that we got to galvanize, start doing to galvanize. And, I want to challenge all the ministers in this city, in this county. Y'all got to really start talking and trying to get folks registered to vote through these churches. The church community is very strong, but it's only strong if you exercise it. And we got to start trying to get people registered to vote. I have a big old bus that I paid for when I was campaigning for mayor. I am willing to put this bus on the road. It holds 38 people. We need to galvanize and go to these small towns. And if we don't come out with nothing but 50 registered voters, we got to start somewhere. Well,
we got to start somewhere. And those candidates have to sign a contract with Black America. We could help you get elected, but I got to know that you feel the pain, that you sense the struggle that's going on in the African-American community because of this economic injustice. So yeah, we can help you get elected, but I gotta know that you the right one. There used to be an old African-American proverb that said when a baby was born, they'd hold him up in the sky and say, "Are you the one? Are you the one?" Do we have any leadership out there in Mississippi that's going to have the impact of Stacey Abrams, who is from Mississippi, but was able to do that volume of work in Georgia? Do we have anybody out there that says, look, I'm going to stand on the block. I'm going to call the press conference. I'm going to read these numbers out loud every day. I want to see the numbers of the city, the county, the airport authority, the school system. I want to share your numbers.
And even if this 1% goes to just 5%, we're going to celebrate. We want to see some movement. It's time to move the needle. 1 to 5% is a lot. That's a huge accomplishment. But we got to start somewhere. Leadership, y'all got to get on the front line. It's often said, and I believe it. These leadership positions need businessmen who understand. Definitely understand. I always brag on the gentleman who owns Jackson Memorial Funeral Home. If you can remember what that place looked like between Martin Luther King and 5 Points, when it was just a little old small house funeral home, and you look at the development that young man has done, a businessman in political leadership would understand this man has spent millions. Let me at least go pave that little strip right there and make sure the lighting is new LED. That makes people eager to spend more money in developing those areas when you compliment what they're doing.
right, exactly. And so on this report that you see on the screen, again, $5 billion, black folk get $40 million, less than 1%. 5 billion, black folk, less than 1%, 40 million, 40% of the population. That doesn't work. That does not work. That's worse than apartheid. That's worse than any third world country. That does not work. That will not grow and build a society. That will not eliminate crime and poverty. That will not change our health statistics in Mississippi. So that does not work. And on this photo that you're looking at, the governor, Tate Reeves, the highest ranking elected official in our state, has to shoulder these numbers. These numbers happen under your administration. The Mississippi Development Authority Director, Bill Court. We have the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hoseman. We have the Speaker of the House, Jason White. These men are in charge of policies and procedures that change things in Mississippi. One policy could change these conditions overnight. Marcus say, take us from less than 1% to 5% and watch our state grow.
And you know, we hear the word incompetence all the time. We're gonna help you all with the incompetence part, because it's obvious that African American business history has not been promoted enough in this city and county and state. So this is why we are very eager with this museum idea, because it's very obvious that a lot of stories have not been told.
Well, you know, the state put a ban on Black history being taught in public schools. So, you know, the knowledge that you and I have and understand and have acquired over the years, our children are being taught. And they're certainly not being taught around the dinner table, because very few Black families sit at the dinner table anymore, where the business opportunities are discussed and how you get ahead in this society. Fathers are not in the home. And so we got a lot of things working against us, Marcus. But these four men right here, y'all need to take a look at this, and y'all need to know that if you want to make Mississippi change the economic injustice and watch your state change, watch it move from last to somewhere meaningful in the middle. You can do it. You can change your heart, change your outlook, and then change the outcome. More importantly, change the outcome of what's currently going on. And then we move from there, Marcus, to our Black elected officials. The next highest ranking individual, not on this paper, is Mayor John Horn, because he is mayor of the largest city in the state of Mississippi with the highest tax base. And he's being threatened by Tupelo and other cities, but Jackson is the capital city. Jackson is the pride of Mississippi. Jackson is whenever you talk to somebody from another state, they refer to Jackson, Mississippi. And so, Mayor Horn, you are required to challenge the numbers that the city has in the same categories and to report the numbers in terms of how are Black folk doing in the city of Jackson. We're going to bring you that report to our viewers as soon as we get our hands on it. And we're going to bring that from not only the city of Jackson, but wherever there is a Black mayor, wherever there is a Black board of supervisors, wherever there is a Black school superintendent, we're going to bring you the numbers and compare them to non-Black institutions to see what the difference is.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, we again, we're not here to bash or throw darts or anything. We're here to really help. You know, it's obvious that, you know, time constraints or whatever has not allowed our public officials to sit back and do this type of research. So we're going to do it for you. We're going to do it for you, and we're here to to help in any way we can as far as changing these numbers. And again, we're not talking out of 95%. We want to see 40% tomorrow. If we go from 1 to 5%, that calls for a huge celebration. And that's just on the state level. If we move the needle on the county level and the local level, 3 to 5%, we have done well. We have done well as far as change. And, we're here to try to, make that happen.
And, we got to quit hating. We gotta realize that sometimes the person that enters the race last will remain last unless they can outrun the person in front of them. Sometimes Booker T. Washington said, it's not the heights that you obtain, but the depths from which you came. It's where you started in life. What your position was then has a tremendous impact on where you are today. So sometimes people look at us and say that we're underachieving only because you measure that by the same standards that you hold non-Blacks to. But many of us, even though we have accomplished very little, are overachieving. And we need to be celebrated for that. And the opportunity should not be denied for that. We should put more emphasis on elevating and uplifting that community than holding it back.
And in leadership, it doesn't matter the year you started or the year you ended. What matters is what you put on that dash.
It does. And what dash is that, Marcus?
The dash in between those years. That's what counts. And if it's got to be meat on the bone.
You talk about the dash on the headstone?
No. Okay. With terms.
Okay.
Term limits or time you hold in a leadership position.
Okay.
We won't go to the tombstone just yet. We won't put them in the grave. But the terms, I served as mayor 2013 to 2021. I tried to put as much as I could on that dash.
Look, we appreciate y'all allowing us to come into your homes and into your businesses or wherever you may be watching this program from. We want you to subscribe to the program and hit the notification bell so that you'll know that we're here. You won't find this content anywhere else on any other platform. So if it's important to you, and many of you call us and say, y'all keep up the good work. But if it's important to you, consider subscribing to this channel, supporting this channel with either your donations or your contributions so that we can continue to bring and have the support. Sometimes for you to say you're doing a good job is just the amount of encouragement that we need to take this fight on. This is not easy. This means that we are accepting the bullseye on our back, that we are offering ourselves up as the target. Because in the African-American community, if you step out in a leadership role, you immediately become targeted. And so we accept that challenge and that responsibility. So it's important that when you see us, hey, say, you guys keep it up. I subscribe to the program. Let me know how I can support y'all. It's been good for us to be here, and we look forward to being with you for a long time to come. Marcus?
Well, I just want to add to what you're saying. I want to definitely thank those because I have, over the last 2 months, I have really gotten those type of thank yous from people in the community whenever, they've seen me, thank you for what you all are doing. And, we're simply just businessmen with some passion. And that's what I think that gives us drive daily or weekly to come to you all with this information. Somebody's got to get on the front line, and we're willing to do it to make change for everybody, not just us.
Somebody consider sponsoring this program and put it over on Super Talk Mississippi in the heart of the beast. Put it there where everybody that thinks a different way than us have an opportunity to be enlightened and educated about these numbers right here. Sponsor it on 90.1. Sponsored on other media outlets. Call us if you're running podcast shows anywhere in the world. We are available to be your guests. Call us if you want us to come and speak to your church or your schools or anywhere else to share this data. It's critically important that we get the message out. Marcus, it's always been good.
Absolutely.
Until next week.
Next week. And just know we'll have another impactful guest coming soon. But we want to bring every guest that we bring, we want he or she to be very impactful to help us create this change.
Good night.
Good night.